So this is our brand new 2022 Polaris RZR Turbo R. It's the Ultimate Edition, and today we are here to test it out, give overall first impressions to find out what it's good at, what it's not so good at, and just overall what we think and what we want to update in the future. So with that, Taylor with KC, this is Trail Tested. Let's get into it. All right, so let's dive right into the meat and the potatoes of this car. As I mentioned at the beginning, it's a 2022. So this is a Polaris RZR Turbo R4. We opted for the Ultimate Edition in this ghost gray color, so it's a very pretty color. We actually like it a lot. It's not black and yellow like KC, but that's okay, it's really nice. So overall, it's a 74-inch wide car. It has 181 horsepower. So it's up there at the top of the class, but it's not probably leading class in terms of horsepower. So I think something like the XRS on the Turbo RRs for the X3s are. So this car is a little bit different, a little bit lower horsepower, but as I mentioned, it's a four-seater, so it's got a lot more room to be able to bring your friends, to be able to bring the family, or maybe it's just you and another person to load up a bunch of gear into the back of the vehicle, like actually what we're doing today to film this video, full of camera gear and all that kind of stuff in the back. So it's a really nice platform. It's got a big storage, a big cargo area in the back as well. It's got roughly 16 inches of ground clearance in total with this thing. And it's just a nice, fun car. It's relatively light for its size as a four-seater. It's 2,300 pounds, somewhere in that range. So overall, it's a great vehicle. It's got lots of nice specs. The Ultimate Edition comes with all the fancy stuff on the inside that we'll get into, as well as the fancy suspension, which is the Dynamics DV. It's an electronically controlled compression and rebound on the Fox Live Valve shocks here, so we'll also show that off inside as well. All right, so wanted to take a minute to cover all of the different things going on the interior of this RZR. There's a lot here, there's a lot happening. They've changed quite a bit from some of the older RZRs, so if you're used to something from 2014, 2015, these things are quite a bit different now. So first and foremost, what you can see is there's some nice steering wheel controls on this thing. Obviously, it's got full Bluetooth connectivity with the big 7-inch touchscreen, so you can connect your phone. You can play some nice music. This car came equipped with Rockford Fosgate audio system in it. So it's really nice, just kind of cruising low speeds. At high speeds, it doesn't really matter. You can't hear it anyway. So that's one really cool feature. But really, the next cool thing is the other side of the steering wheel. That's how you control the Dynamics DV system on here, that suspension system. So that's that true electronically controlled compression and rebound setting. So as you can see, if I were to thumb through here, you can kind of tab through the different screens and the different, not screens, I'm sorry, the different settings, whether it's Baja mode, rock crawling mode, track mode, or comfort mode. So that's the really cool feature of this car. That's definitely an upgraded feature. It's not a standard feature on a lot of the RZRs, so only on the higher end ones it comes standard. So next thing right next to it is another button for that dynamic system. Big red button, it's basically the oh shit button. What this does is completely locks up the suspension, so if you're coming into a big G out, you'll hit that button right beforehand and it locks that suspension up and stiffens it nicely for, I don't know, roughly a second and a half or so to get through that G out, so that way it doesn't come crashing down too hard. So that little red button's kind of to get you out of trouble mode right there. So that's the first really cool part of it. The next thing is over on the big 7-inch touchscreen. There's obviously a bunch to cover beyond that. I mean, there's also really nice storage compartments throughout the whole thing that are weather safe, weather sealed, all the chargers for your phones, all kinds of cool stuff. There's interior lighting, just really nice stuff. But back to this thing, you can see that it's got all the gauges that you'd ever want to see, from temperature to direction to elevation control to, for us, it's really important to see the voltage of the car for the battery. So it's got all those different modes, speedometer, of course, all that stuff. So it's really cool to have all that. But the really big feature is Polaris's ride command system. So this is their GPS, built-in GPS navigation system. So you have built-in nav in here, but you also have the Ride with Friends feature where you can kind of link this up with other Polarises that have this same system in it, and you can kind of track your route. You can see where your other friends are right as they're behind you as it's live. So it's a really nice system. That's honestly one of my favorite things about this car, is the ability to have that. Now, that being said, right behind us is our Can-Am X3, and that is of course not compatible with that. So if you're riding with a bunch of Polarises, works great. If you're riding with people that have Polarises and Can-Ams, or even Kawasaki's, Hondas, whatever, it's not gonna work. It's only gonna be for the Polarises for some of those features. So that's the real cool part. Obviously there's tons of bells and whistles throughout here. Everything that came factory is just really, really nice, really high quality, from the seats to the doors to the latches. All of it is really nice. Even the little headlight switch and the two-wheel drive to whatever they call the on-demand all-wheel drive system, kind of a four-wheel drive. The switches are no longer just like your cheap standard plastic rocker switch. They're actually really high quality, nicely designed switches that are illuminated as well. So the whole car just feels modern. It feels brand new, of course, because it's a brand new model for them, but you can really tell that Polaris put a lot of effort into this car in general. So with that, that's a lot of the interior stuff to check out. I think that's it for the inside. Just to wrap it up with a few quick specs here, a few final specs before we get into what our plans are for the Polaris. I don't think I mentioned it earlier, it does come on 32-inch Maxxis tires. And then for wheel travel, front and rear, the front is 22¼ of an inch. That's actual wheel travel, not the claimed usable travel. That's like 27 inches or something like that, but wheel travel is 22¼ In the rear, it is 22.4 inches of wheel travel here, so it's got a lot of suspension travel on it for a vehicle that I really feel like is firmly planted as a fun adventure type vehicle. It's got tons of capability. I mentioned earlier that the speed of this thing at 181 horsepower isn't my favorite because it just doesn't feel quite as fast as our two-door X3 does. But that's also not what this car is for, you know? Like, this car to us is a little bit more fun, it's a little bit more adventurous feeling. So I think long term, that's gonna be the game plan of how we end up building this vehicle. I think it's gonna turn into a little bit more of an expedition-oriented style build. I'm not saying we're gonna put a rooftop tent on it or anything like that, because we're not gonna be overlanding or anything like that with this vehicle. But when it gets hot out, we wanna have an awning on it, something like that, so we can sit down, enjoy the shade. In the back of this, the Polaris came with what's called a fold flat storage with actual tie-down points inside of the back two seats. So you just pull the upper portion of the rear seat out, then you can fold the bottom portions down, which is really nice, big extra area. Also, as I mentioned before, it's got a huge cargo area on the back, and they've got all kinds of coolers and other accessories that can go in there as well. So really, I think for us, this is gonna turn into the newest adventure vehicle. It's plenty capable, it's plenty fast, it's got plenty of suspension travel, and it's got plenty of room for us to hang out, whether it's with the other employees here at KC or just to bring out friends, family, whatever it may be. So I know we are gonna swap out. I personally hate the wheels on this thing. A couple people over here, they actually do like them, but those are gonna go away. I'm not gonna lie, the Maxxis tires that are on here, they like to skate around quite a bit. It's kind of that weird hybrid in between an all-terrain and like a big chunky mud terrain. So we're gonna swap those out. Not sure what the plan is for the wheels and the tires yet, but I do know we're gonna do that. Honestly, I don't think we're gonna touch suspension on this. The control arms, everything is super beefy, so I don't think we have to mess with that. We don't want to change the shocks on it because they have those live valve on it. The other really nice thing on the trailing arms, you can kind of see it right behind me, the trailing arms on this have a new, like kind of a dragling type setup or something that cuts right through that. That actually allows for better adjustment of camber caster on the rear tires, which the Turbo S's did not have previously. So once you slap those suckers on, your tires and wheels they kind of were where they were. So Polaris has built in a little bit more adjustability on this model. So again, I don't think because of the quality of the components on this car, I don't think we're gonna even touch suspension. So a lot of it's gonna be cosmetic. We're gonna R&D, fab up some light mounts for it, some overhead roof bars, some A-pillar brackets, stuff like that. So in general, that's gonna be the future of this build. We hope that you found this trail test video useful. We certainly found a whole bunch of stuff out about this car that we didn't know. This thing's brand new, it's got 20 miles on it. So we found out a whole bunch about this that we really like and that we didn't like quite so much. So it really helped us determine the direction for this build. So if you liked it, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, it really helps us out quite a bit. And remember to go adventure further. Two and an inch, 22, that'd be 23.